Hello, and welcome to Wiltshire Libraries Poetry, Tea and Chat podcast. I'm Peter from Wiltshire Mobile Libraries, and I'm glad you can join me for some readings and recommendations, and hopefully a good cup of tea. I've got my favourite stripy mug here, which today is full of Earl Grey, so I hope you've got something good too. Regular viewers will notice that I'm back here in my poetry cave after a couple of outside broadcasts in Devises Library, and this episode is going out live on the Wiltshire Mobile Libraries Facebook page, but you can catch it later along with previous editions of Poetry, Tea and Chat with myself or my colleagues Philip, Jessica and Basil on the Wiltshire Libraries YouTube channel. It's currently March, and so today's readings are going to have a spring theme. And the first poem I'm going to read is The Enkindled Spring by D.H. Lawrence. The Enkindled Spring. This spring, as it comes, bursts up in bonfires green. Wild puffing of green fire trees and flame-filled bushes. Thorn blossom lifting in wreaths of smoke between where the wood fumes up and the flickering watery rushes. I am amazed at this spring, this conflagration of green fires lit on the soil of the earth, this blaze of growing, these smoke puffs that puff in the wild gyration, faces of people blowing across my gaze. And I, what sort of fire am I among this conflagration of spring? The gap in it all. Not even palish smoke like the rest of the throng. Less than the wind that runs to the flamy call. That's The Enkindled Spring by D.H. Lawrence. Now, I don't know where you get your reading recommendations, but I often pick up some really good ones from the book programme Between the Covers on BBC Two with Sara, which is currently on a new series showing on Mondays at 7 p.m. on BBC Two. The current series is recommending books with a connection to countries competing in this year's Eurovision Song Contest, which is a bit of a tenuous link, but there are some great books on the reading list which you can access via the BBC website if you search for Between the Covers. The first episode of this current series featured a recommendation for Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. It's a novel based on a true story, which I've read, and it's set in Iceland in the 1800s, where Agnes, a young woman, has been charged with murder, but with no prisons on the island, and with no magistrate able to travel to Iceland whilst it's in the grip of its ferocious winter months. Agnes has to live with a sheep farmer's family until spring. In the meantime, a young priest visits her and tries to get her to reconcile herself. I thought it was a hauntingly well-written book and kept me guessing till the end, even if you're aware of the true case it was based on and you know what the ultimate verdict was. It's a really interesting exploration of the woman's mind, Agnes's mind, and keeps you guessing to the end as to the reasons for her actions. That's Burial Rites by Hannah Kent. And if you're interested in any of the books or poems I mention, I'll put a list of them in the comments as usual. And of course, they are all available from Wiltshire Libraries. So, another poem. Next one I thought I would do is The Progress of Spring by Alfred Lord Tennyson. As you can't get a more spring poem than this one from Tennyson. Progress of Spring. The ground flame of the crocus breaks the mould. Fair spring slides hither over the southern sea. Wavers on her thin stem the snowdrop cold, that trembles not to kisses of the bee. Come, spring, for now, from all the dripping eaves, the spear of ice has wept itself away, and hour by hour unfolding woodbine leaves, o'er his uncertain shadow droops the day. She comes, the loosened rivulets run, the frost bead melts upon her golden hair, her mantle, slowly greening in the sun, now wraps her close, now arching leaves her bare, to breaths of balmier air. Up leaps the lark, gone wild to welcome her. About her glance the tits and shriek the jays. Before her skims the jubilant woodpecker. The linnet's bosom blushes at her gaze, while round her brows a woodland culver flits, watching her large light eyes and gracious looks, and in her open palm a halcyon sits, patient, the secret splendour of the brooks. Come spring, she comes on waste and wood, on farm and field, but enter also here. Diffuse thyself at will through all my blood, and though thy violet sicken into sere, lodge with me all the year. That is The Progress of Spring by Tennyson. So, in those two first verses of The Progress of Spring by Tennyson, it mentions both woodpeckers and larks, which are two birds I was lucky enough to hear last weekend whilst I was out walking my dog. I very much enjoy walking my dog across the fields and through the woods, but I'm always very careful to stick to the path. But in a seamless segue, my next book recommendation is all about leaving the path and crossing boundaries. And I'd like to recommend this book here, which is The Book of Tresspass by Nick Hayes. It's a non-fiction book, and it's a call to arms about the right to roam, or possibly a call to feet might be more appropriate, as the author travels the country exploring the exclusion of public access from the British countryside. The writer Nick Hayes has strongly held convictions that not everyone will agree with, but this isn't a po-faced polemic and is written with considerable humour as well as passion for his subject. If you like the writing of Robert Macfarlane or Roger Deacon, both of whom I like very much, I would recommend The Book of Tresspass by Nick Hayes. There you go. Again, available in all good Wiltshire Libraries, which is all of them. Now I'm going to read the opening lines of a poem called The Fish by Rupert Brook, as it has a line about March narrows in it, which, as this is going out live in March, is all the excuse I need to include it as a spring poem. So this is the beginning of The Fish by Rupert Brook. In a cool, curving world he lies, and ripples with dark ecstasies. The kind luxurious lapse and steel shapes all his universe to feel, and know and be the clinging stream closes his memory, glooms his dream. Who lips the roots o' the shore and glides superb on unreturning tides, those silent waters weave for him a fluctuant, mutable world and dim, where wavering masses bulge and gape mysterious, and shape to shape dies momently through whirl and hollow, and form and line and solid follow, solid and line and form to dream, fantastic down the internal stream. An obscure world, a shifting world, bulbous or pulled to thin, or curled, or serpentine, or driving arrows, or serene slidings, or March narrows. That's the beginning of The Fish by Rupert Brook. So I'm actually going to read one more poem for you today, and my final poem for you today could go humorously wrong, as it's written in Dorset dialect. My dad's from Dorset and I'm West Country born and bred, but you may have noticed my accent doesn't reflect that. So I'm just hoping this doesn't all go a bit wurzels, but it's a really nice poem for this time of year, and so apologies for any aficionados of Victorian Dorset dialect out there, but here's The Blackbird by William Barnes. The Blackbird. of all the birds upon the wing, between the sunny showers of spring, o'er all the lark a swinging high, mid-zing below a cloudless sky, and sparrows clustering round the bough, mid-chatter to the men at plough. The blackbird, whistling in among the boughs, do zing the gayest song. For we do hear the blackbird zing his sweetest ditties in the spring, when nipping winds no more do blow from northern skies we sleet or snow, but drive light doused along between the lean-side hedges thick and green, and zoo the blackbird in among the boughs do zing the gayest song. 'Tis blithe with newly opened eyes to see the morden's ruddy skies, or out a hauling frith or lops from new pleshed hedge or new veld copse, to rest at noon in primrose beds below the white-barked woke trees' heads. But there's no time the whole day long, like evening with the blackbird song. Okay, that was The Blackbird by William Barnes, a Victorian Dorset polymath who was a poet and writer on all sorts of things. And a lot of his poetry, as I say, is written in a Dorset dialect. He's a little bit like Dorset's answer to Robert Burns. But yeah, as I say, forgive me for you aficionados of Dorset Victorian dialect for my attempt at reading that. Today I would like to end with a plug for Reading Friends, the Reading Friends project. Reading Friends is an umbrella term for a number of activities that we run in Wiltshire Libraries, one of which is the Poetry Tea and Chat podcast that you're listening to now. Another is the Visually Impaired Reading Group that is run by my colleague Basil from Trowbridge Library. And then we also host shared reading groups in 6 of our larger libraries. So shared reading groups come together to share reading pieces of poetry or prose and talk about how the writing makes them feel. There's no need to prepare or read anything in advance, and copies of whatever the group is going to read are handed out at the meetings. Shared reading groups are particularly good at helping to support people living with certain issues, such as anxiety, bereavement, or loss of memory, but they're open to anyone who enjoys reading and the feeling of well-being that comes from this. There are shared reading groups running at the libraries in Trowbridge, Salisbury, Westbury, Warminster, Calne and Royal Wootton Bassett. So if you're interested in going along to a shared reading group, do please contact your nearest Wiltshire Library to find out more. So thanks very much for listening to the Poetry Tea and Chat podcast. I hope you can join us at Wiltshire Libraries for more readings, recommendations, tea and book chat next time. So cheers.